Well, Allison Shattuck, breaking news.
Breaking news?
Breaking news.
Breaking news? We're
Yes.
all waiting.
Here we go. Are you ready for the breaking news?
I'm ready.
The Department of Justice appeals the ruling by a federal judge that struck down the mask mandate for mass transportation. The CDC has ordered it so to be done. And so the DOJ is going to appeal it. This is Psaki today answering a question about this.
A couple of questions on masking. The president said yesterday that people should decide for themselves whether to wear masks on airplanes, and wondering whether his comment was intended to signal a shift in thinking in the administration away from mandates toward more personal responsibility.
Well, the president was answering the question quite literally, which means right now, as you know, we are not implementing the mask mandate because of the court order, which we disagree with. While he is still abiding by CDC guidance, and we recommend Americans do that across the country, they're still recommending people wear masks on airplanes. On Air Force One, which of course is a federal, not a private plane, we all wore masks on the plane when we traveled to New Hampshire yesterday. But we are not, people are not legally bound to wear masks. So it is a point in time where it is up to people, it is their choice in that regard.
So, of course, they're going to attempt to take that choice away. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
First of all, it's fantastic that the White House extracted themselves from this maneuver completely by ceding over, complete authority to the CDC. Into
You want what?
Can you go somewhere else, please?
Okay, when we're done, do you want this while we're doing this?
I can't.
Okay.
Okay. I
His
think.
foot hurts, and he wants nachos.
Okay. So the White House has taken itself out of this decision.
Right.
And so the CDC then said today, of course, the CDC works at the behest of the executive branch.
Right.
So the White House could put themselves in this decision, but in an attempt to just hide from the storm, they have let the CDC do it. So the CDC now has ordered the DOJ to appeal this decision, which a judge in Florida enacted or found, whatever it's called.
Right.
So,
What's wrong with your dog?
I don't know what's wrong with this. Can you?
Pepper.
Oh, do you see something, Pepper? Is there something
She wants something under that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So, okay. I will watch the Route 66 special for the rest of this podcast if more shit happens here. Okay. So you've got a dog who's fascinated with something under a table.
Okay, let me help the dog.
Cyril, could you help
Just
to see
Phil
what
for
Pepper
a
wants?
second.
Phil for a second. Okay. I was having a conversation, but I will Phil for a second instead. Whatever happened to zebra gum? Remember zebra gum from the 1970s? Oh, her ball. Good. Okay. 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 Cyril, can you go downstairs and play with your brother, please? He's already eaten all of the sugar, so there's nothing else for him to eat down there. And the brown sugar, too, so that's gone, too. What's going on, Alice?
I'm just getting the cameras back up and
Okay.
moving.
Okay, let's pretend for a moment that this particular episode didn't explode in the tarmac, and let's try again. Okay.
I have a lot of stuff for this episode, by the way.
Okay, good. Let me know when you're ready to start.
I'm ready to start. I'm right here. I'm ready to go.
Okay, so the CDC is appealing the travel mask mandate.
I think that's really dumb of them. I don't know what you think about it, but it seems to me that going into...
I'm for it.
No, I mean, but from a political standpoint, do you think it's smart for them or no?
I think it's just simply cowardly. I mean, you're showing discord at the White House. You're showing that the ducks are not in a row, and there seems to be a leadership vacuum where for the last year and a half there's been a leadership vacuum.
Right. There's nobody in charge. They're just letting the agencies do what they want to do, basically, in theory. Although, I think if anybody were at home in the administration and anybody were thinking about it, they would tell the CDC not to do this. Like, you're in charge of the CDC. You're the chief executive. Do something about this, because you're going to send your party into midterms in the year 2022, a year and a half after the 2.5 years after the pandemic started. You're going to send your party into midterms as the party of fighting to keep the masks on the plane. And like, after the people cheering on the planes, you don't think that people now have noticed that it's much nicer to fly without a mask on? I think they've noticed now, and I don't understand like how you go back from this now. Like, it was one thing before the dam had broken to sort of continue to keep people on autopilot masking on the planes, but like, after everybody's been cheering for the mask mandates ending, like, how do you tell them to put them back on now?
Right.
Like, I think that there's going to be a rebellion about this.
I think this is the problem. And hang on, let me send this to me so I can
But did you see Jen Psaki answering about that?
Said, and maybe some of it is because there was the video of people on planes, on one plane, taking off their masks. Public polling does not actually show that there is a universal view of people getting rid of masks. That's not actually what public polling shows.
No, I think that she is technically right about that.
Yeah, there's not a universal view.
Right. But I think that the polling is simply wrong, or was asked in a sloppy way, because most people want to take off masks. Because before the pandemic, nobody ever wore masks, and there's only a thin amount of people who are truly psychotic and who believe that they're protecting you. You have to be a true believer to think that this is something, like that doctor we played yesterday, that this is something that's going to result in more deaths or spread of this thing.
Well, right. And it's been obvious the whole time that a lot of people don't really believe this in their heart of hearts, that a lot of them, you know, in their private lives or when they're invited to a really cool party, they don't wear their masks.
Yes.
You know, in private, and they just enforce the rules on other people in public because they think it's like the right thing to do. But you're right, it is really interesting, because I think that the polls do fall short, because people apparently don't really say what they're thinking. Once people started taking off the masks, it was like a flood. That's why I said it's like the dam breaking. And I don't see how you put that water back outside the dam. Like, you can't,
right.
It's not a reversible process. Like, once you lift these restrictions, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to go back. And I think that attempting to be the party of those restrictions and attempting to fight for those restrictions in court in a midterm year is really dumb of them. I don't think that you want to be that party.
No, but then again, Alice, is it possible that all they've got at this point, remember as John Silber said to Bill Weld, Frank Bellotti, quoting the great Bob Dylan, when you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. Is possibly this it? Is that this is just an attempt to close ranks around the small bit of the base that they've got? And this is how you do it. This is it. So the closing around the small base that you have, even though it's going to be resoundingly negative to some of the constituencies that you've lost now. So there are going to be some wine moms who've had enough of this crap and who are done. So even though they're going to say, well, this guy is an idiot, at least it preserves the base a little bit. The true believers. The masked people are good people kind of believers. In the same way, Biden also said, Psaki also said today that Biden was going to try to find a way to commute the sentences or get people out of jail who were in for marijuana crimes. I mean, that is a defund the police policy point, right, which would be an insane thing to do unless you just want that activist class, that base, to love you at the cost of everybody else, because everybody else has left.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I've seen some of this argument on Twitter. I've seen it like about, for example, the Virginia governor's race, saying that that Youngkin didn't actually win because he mobilize new people, that, that people just didn't show up to vote for the Democrat because they weren't excited about the progressive talking points, And this is something that people like AOC will say, that if you go more woke and more socialist in your talking points, that it gets the activist base excited and then they show up and vote. But the truth is that the turnout in that governor's race was much higher than any previous Virginia governor's race, which are held in off years, not a presidential year. And so that activist base, was activated and out there and engaged and voting in bigger numbers than ever before. Terry McAuliffe got bigger numbers than he had in the past.
Right.
And actually it just really was that the GOP did motivate other people even more than that. So the problem is that with that talking point is that it doesn't actually bear out in the numbers, that you do actually need to win the independents and the moderates. Turn it down a little bit or I'm taking it away. That you do actually need to win the independents and the moderates in order to win elections. That just activate the base talking points don't actually work.
Well,
or at least the Democrat ones don't actually seem to work.
Well, and isn't that another problem here? Because with that election, is you also need those public sector unions. You need a teachers union to be, or McAuliffe felt he needed to. That's why he declared fealty to the teachers unions,
right?
To the detriment of the campaign. After parents, Democrats, some of them, had dealt with a year and a half of the teachers unions bullying them, totally underservicing their kids, shutting down, being selfish. And then McAuliffe says, hey, parents, by the way, the union gets priority in my mind over you, just so you know.
Yeah, they own your kids, by the way.
Right. But he needs those people to be, because those public sector unions are also campaign workers, let's be honest.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like that this is what Biden's doing. I think they're saying, it really feels to me like a despot's last days as the army approaching army advances, and just trying to round up, everything you have left.
I guess we'll find out,
though.
Get a
machine gun belt and throw it over your shoulder and fill sandbags, and that's it.
I guess we'll find out, but it seems to me that leaning into the strategy that's not working isn't the way that you want to go when it's something as big as the midterms, right? I mean, not only Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, but the New Jersey governor's race, which wasn't even supposed to be close, almost got flipped Republican. And I bet if people had realized how close it was in advance and had put a little more energy and money into that race, had been a little more motivated to get out and vote, I bet that could have gone the other way. I mean, New Jersey going to a Republican governor, like, I know we've had Christie in the past and whatever, but after the division of Trump and these more urban places going so blue over the last few years, and for New Jersey after all that to almost go to a Republican, that would have been incredible. And so the idea that now you're leaning into all the policies that people said that they didn't like. You're leaning into forced masking on airplanes. You're leaning into teaching radical gender ideology in schools. You're leaning into the bad economy and blaming other people for it. Like, literally everything that I mean, I can't even... Like, back in that Virginia governor's race, there was some inflation. Like, people were feeling the pinch a little bit, but not even like it is now at all.
Right.
The economy's so much worse. I mean, like, I don't know what they think they're playing at with this gender stuff in the schools, but it just seems to get more ridiculous and outrageous by the day. The behavior around the Libs of TikTok account, which, by the way, we didn't even get that in depth with that yesterday, but, like, do you realize that in the original version of that story, she published that woman's real estate license online with her full name and address, and then took it out of the story without a correction notice, but it's still in the Internet archives?
Oh, my goodness, what monsters.
And then, by the way, also speaking of Internet archives, it came out today that apparently Taylor Lawrence has filed a request with the Internet Wayback Machine, which is an Internet archiving service, where her Twitter page is excluded from the Wayback Machine Internet archives.
Isn't that great? How sinister is that that
So you can't.
monster.
And other archive sites show that she used to have 5 to 10 times as many tweets as she has on her page now.
What a
so
sinister
she's been
monster
deleting
she
tweets.
is.
It's incredible.
So I want to go back to something, the Psaki thing for 1 second here.
People on planes, on one plane, taking off their masks. Public polling does not actually show that there is a universal view of people getting rid of masks.
Isn't that right there? Public polling does not actually show that there's a universal view of getting rid of masks.
Mm-hmm.
Notice how that statement is so wobbly. Public
Right.
polling does not actually show there's a universal view. So it almost tells you, like, public polling does not actually, there's not a universal view in the data, but she qualifies it with universal. So there is some, but we're not sure. And doesn't that give away the reason why they just stepped aside and let other people deal with it? Doesn't show it. Doesn't show a universal. You can see them in the
People disagree about this.
in the cabinet meeting
Hard
early
to
in
know
the
what
day,
to do.
saying yeah. So the public viewing doesn't show that there's a universal view, but there's viral videos. But who knows what other data? So what do we? I mean, I don't know. Jill wants the president to wear one. Okay, so I guess we'll do.
Aside from people
I guess
on
Rochelle
Twitter,
Walensky, you'll make the decision that you want masking back. Yes, I will.
aside from people on Twitter, I don't know anybody who's upset about this in real life.
No.
I don't. It is funny though. Jerome Adams, the former Surgeon General, got upset because he tweeted about it. A Delta pilot walked by him in the airport and said, "Take off your mask, man. Breathe free." And he's upset. Why is it that those who so strongly felt that others were imposing their beliefs on health, wellness, and compassion on them feel so free to impose their beliefs on others? Well, I think the masked people, if all they had been doing was going up to people and saying, "Come on, put on a mask," in a joking, friendly way, that,
Yeah, but this is
that there
not
wouldn't have been a problem.
right. This
But-
was not a direct order.
Yeah,
This is a guy
nobody's
flippantly,
forcing
like,
you.
informing him, "Hey, by the way, you can take it off now. There's no reason to be doing this stupid
No.
stuff."
But imagine they feel so put upon, but they forced everybody else to wear masks for 2 years. Forced them, as in you're going to be kicked off the plane and never allowed to fly again if you don't put on this mask, and force your 2-year-old to wear it crying through the whole flight. They literally forced everybody to do it for 2 whole years, and then they can't handle the fact that now they're the odd ones out, and somebody's like, "Come on, take off your mask." They can't. That's too much for them. That's an oppression that happened to them.
All right, so can we move on to Jen Psaki on the podcast where she gets emotional?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, here's Jen Psaki talking about the
Why is she on a media tour right now, by the way? Why is she going
funny
on
question,
everything?
Alice. Why do you think she's on a media tour right now?
Because she's about to leave the White House and go to her MSNBC show?
That's correct. And she's getting emotional and showing real heart. She's a fighter. I want to check out that show on MSNBC. She's using her time at the White House, taxpayer-funded time, to practice for her new gig.
And
the
promote herself.
political games and harsh and cruel attempts at laws that we're seeing in some states like Florida, that is not a reflection of the country moving to oppose LGBTQ plus communities. That is not what we see in data. That is not factual. And that is not where things stand. This is a political wedge issue and an attempt to win a culture war. And they're doing that in a way that is harsh and cruel to a community of kids, especially. I'm going to get emotional about this issue because it's horrible.
She cares that much.
But it's like kids who are bullied, and all these leaders are taking steps to hurt them and hurt their lives and hurt their families. And you look at some of these laws in these states, and it is going after parents who are in loving relationships, who have kids. It's completely outrageous. But it is a wedge issue. Sorry. This is an issue that makes me completely crazy. But it is an issue that is a political wedge issue. It is not a reflection of where the country is.
So it's the kids being bullied?
This is not who we are.
It's the kids being bullied that's happening. So just the same way they picture a Republican as a dumb, fat, drunk, white, racist boorish, moron, anti-Semite, borderline, if not full rapist. They have this composite in their head.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've got, in order to keep that composite, to give that composite a target, they've got the kids who are bullied. Bullied because unless we totally roll out the trans red carpet for some 5-year-old who may be a tomboy, that somehow he's being bullied. You stupid girly, you girl, gay, whatever they're calling the kid. And it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I looked up, you know where I usually go for my polls, for my studies on this stuff, on gender, sex, and sexualities? Frontiers in Psychology.
Okay.
And what's the one group that you want to check out here? Transgender identity is associated with bullying involvement among who's the most average kids in the world who represent all kids? Kids from
Florida?
No, Finland.
Finland.
Okay. Is that what Finnish is?
Yeah.
Okay. Background. During adolescence, bullying often has a sexual content. Involvement in bullying as a bully, victim, or both has been associated with a range of negative health outcomes. Transgender youth appear to face elevated rates of bullying when compared to their mainstream peers. However, the involvement of transgender youth as perpetrators of bullying remains unclear in recent literature, but this is about to clear that up.
Okay.
Both experiences of being bullied and perpetuating bullying were more commonly reported by transgender youth than by cisgender youth. Among transgender youth, all involvement in bullying was more commonly reported by non-binary youth than those identifying with the opposite sex. Logistic regression revealed that non-binary identity was most strongly associated with the involvement in bullying, followed by the opposite sex identity and cisgender. Transgender identities were also more strongly associated with perpetration of bullying than subjection to bullying. Conclusion. Transgender identity, especially non-binary identity, is associated with both being bullied and perpetrating bullying, even when a range of variables, including internal stress and involvement in bullying in the opposite role, are taken into account. This suggests that bullying during adolescence may serve as a mechanism of maintaining heteronormativity. What is it?
Heteronormativity.
Right. So, sure, but it's complicated, Jen. And it still goes to show you that this is just, we're running on emotions here. We're running on emotions. First of all, I think bullying, and oh yeah, you know what? Here,
Speaking of running on emotions, it's incredible, like, the mask issue and everything else. So, like, we know somebody who's running for a school committee in Massachusetts, and unfortunately the town is pretty blue, and she's against, like, mask mandates and other stuff. So she's been getting yelled at pretty badly on the internet.
Oh, I'm sure.
This whole time. But one of the people on one of the posts, like, one of her supporters put up a post saying that, like, it's about, you know, parents having a choice and a right to do with their own kids, and they want to support somebody for a school committee that supports, like, parent choices. And this guy, supposedly an adult man, got on there to comment about how he was abused as a kid and nobody reported it, and that parents make choices to do terrible things to kids all the time, and the schools have to step in, and she must support what happened to him as a kid when he was abused and had to be taken out of his home. So, I mean, like, that's just free association at that point. If you say, but like what you're saying about, like, people just being emotional and saying crazy stuff, like Jen Psaki, Ron DeSantis isn't bullying any children. That's like a psychotic stretch.
So this is from the Human Rights Campaign. This is a little bio of Alexis Abarca. You know her?
No.
She's a trans woman. So it's a guy who's a woman who became a transgender leader, and she looks good, I gotta say. Alice,
okay.
Wait, does that mean I came out?
No.
Am I non-binary now?
No.
But anyway, so he was obviously a boy in high school and was badly bullied. Mm-hmm. But listen to this. Here's an example of the bullying.
As a trans woman, I mainly hid who I was because I didn't want to, like, disappoint my parents. While I was trying to pretend that I was somebody else on the outside, on the inside, I was crushing myself. I went to an inner city high school. I got bullied, I got hit. The football team especially would push me into locker, throw me into the bathroom.
So, obviously, he was different, probably. And the football team pushed him in the lockers, threw him in the bathroom. They hit him. Whatever. I was a cisgender.
White male.
Yes. And the football team was an a-hole to me, too. The football team is full of a-holes, in case you didn't know. Bullying didn't sprout out of the transgender world. Are you kidding me? High school is full of a-holes. And the fact that you get to say, oh my goodness, I was targeted because yeah, they'll target you for stuff. They also will protect you for stuff, but they're a-holes. That's why you get out of high school and never look back. High school is full of jerks. Were you mistreated in high school?
Maybe.
Or smeared or whatever? I'm sure, of course you were. Especially high schools in rich towns. My God. The people are... Seriously? It's like the W towns are essentially the date rape towns. Give me a break. But like this whole thing, transgenders, they're going to get bullied in school in case you don't. First of all, bullying's not allowed in school. So whatever you do to stop bullying,
Yeah, just
do
stop the bullying. It's fine.
But it also appears, according to my friends in Finland, that some of the bulliers are terminally trans kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, it's so disingenuous because the whole thing, I mean, it's the same, every argument the left makes, like you're saying, is coming just from a place of emotion, that you have to subscribe to their entire philosophy or you're like this bad and evil person who endorses everything bad that ever happened. Like, oh, you want parents to have a choice whether or not to put a mask on their kid? You must support child abuse. Oh, you don't support our entire trans agenda and doing surgeries on young teenagers and giving irreversible hormone treatments to young kids. Like, oh, you're bullying children now. Like everything. I mean, like the gun control argument, same thing. Like if you think that, you know, maybe putting everybody in the country on a registry for guns is a bad idea, you must have like wanted the Newtown, Connecticut shooting to happen or something, right? It's like it's the most absurd, disingenuous arguments that you could come up with for any of this stuff, because they just take like the most emotional, outrageous thing and frame it like if you don't subscribe to every policy belief that they have, that you support everything bad on the earth and you're literally a Nazi and an abuser and a racist and every other crazy thing that they can come up with. It is interesting too. I keep checking in on that story of the two gay dads whose kids were yelled at on the train.
Which absolutely happened.
So, I mean, a guy was kicked off the train. They did call the Amtrak police and they called the local police there for backup or whatever to come remove this gentleman from the train. And you know, one of the dads, the Mr. Viral Twitter thread, posted a link to a BuzzFeed story that was able to find another eyewitness, and he's like, see, it happened. But what the eyewitness said wasn't exactly about that. What the eyewitness said was that after the gay dads left the train car, the guy continued to go around the train and yell at people and act erratic. And was out of his mind. And then I did find a tiny bit of footage of them talking to the guy on the platform. He wasn't arrested or anything. So whatever happened, it can't have been that dramatic because he wasn't. Amtrak's talking about not letting him buy Amtrak tickets anymore. But the reason why they may not be saying much more about it and they haven't ID'd the guy and stuff is that he appears to be, from the blurry footage that I was able to find on one local news station, he appears to be a gentleman of color. And I'm thinking, based on the description, that he was continuing to yell at and accost other people on the train
psychotic,
who were presumably not gay dads, is that he's a person with some probably pretty severe mental health problems. And they're not, and I mean, this was California, I believe. So they're not trying to arrest crazy people who yell at passersby for things and get them in serious trouble. So, I mean, I think that's probably what's going to ultimately come of that story, is it's just going to fade away into the mists. And, you know, but I mean, I think the guy yelled at them on the train from what they're saying, and possibly from the fact that he's a black guy, one of the things he was saying was that, like, they steal black and Asian kids. Like, it's possible that this was more about the race of the parents being white and the kids not being white. Because some black people do have a problem with interracial adoption. Like,
Sure.
that was a thing during the Amy Coney Barrett trial too. So it's possible it was more like talking points along those lines. We may never know exactly what the guy was saying, but them saying that, like, he downloaded talking points from Ron DeSantis and Tucker Carlson and Fox News is just patently not true. Like, this has nothing to do with the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. And these dads have now been doing a media tour, posting pictures of their kid all over Twitter, like, and pictures of them in every news story, talking about how scary it was for them and how their kid now, like, has nightmares and stuff. Like, it's so absurd, and to frame it in this way, like, part of what he was saying was that it's like the fault of people like J.K. Rowling.
Yes. Definitely.
Who's, like, pro-gay and, like, made one of her characters
no, she
gay.
said that women are something.
I mean, it's insanity. It's insanity to, like, blame J.K. Rowling because some crazy person yelled at you about who knows what.
Nope.
Probably not even really about being gay, but whatever.
It creates an atmosphere, Alice. It gives a permission structure.
Yeah.
So, we're ready for a cat fight?
Okay.
Huh? This is Kaylee McEnany about Jen Psaki's crying routine.
In gender ideology at kindergarten. I mean, when my daughter goes to school, I don't want her learning about those things, coming home and being taught things that I then have to explain to her. And of all the issues to cry and get upset about, Sean, there's a war in Ukraine. There is bloodshed in our streets, children literally dying on the streets from crime that is totally out of control and rampant. There is COVID, where more Americans have died on Joe Biden's watch than on President Trump's. There is a lot to cry about. Namely, if you want to cry about one issue in this country right now, I think the press secretary should cry about the 62 million children that do not exist, that have been aborted because of Roe v. Wade, a heinous decision in this country that has exterminated about 1/5 of the United States population. So if you want to cry, don't cry about forcing sexual...
I would have gone with the kids who have been so destabilized by the COVID nonsense that they're hurting themselves, if not killing themselves. I would have gone with that, Kaylee, but I hear you. Did you see the thing with Bill O'Reilly yelling?
No.
Oh, he yelled at a guy at a ticket counter at an airport. He's right in his face. He's looking at the guy's name tag. It is the least surprising bit of Bill O'Reilly video that you'll ever see, but it kind of reminds me of that generation of people. My dad could occasionally have a bit of a he was a name tag guy.
My grandparents were the worst. I couldn't go to restaurants with them. It was terrible. It was like the most painful experience ever. There was one time that my grandmother decided that the waiter wasn't being fast enough and told him that from now on his new nickname was Speedy.
Oh, that's vicious. That is vicious.
And, yeah, it was a lot to deal with as a kid. So.
Oh, Speedy, that's great. That is great when they get to the age of it and they just don't get free. Oh, man. Oh,
my grandparents were also big on singing together before the meal in the restaurant.
In the restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh. That is tough. That is tough. Yeah. No, yeah. My dad was not a big guy. I'm much bigger and taller, just bigger model of human being.
Yep.
But he was an aggressive dude. Man, he would to somebody's face. Me and Jimmy, my brother, were shocked that he didn't get clocked more. Or ever, that we saw anyway. But, oh, yeah. Yeah. It was best to, yeah. You were not going to get away with much. It's just that generation where there's no. They had certain demands for service, and if you didn't reach those demands, I remember my dad one time I went to this. I had gotten into the bar, the Red Hat in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Underage. I went one time. I had to beg my brother and his friend to let me tag along. And I got in underage, and either I showed them my license, and I used to just give people my real license when I was underage, and hopefully they wouldn't notice, or
that was pre the making the underage license vertical.
Oh, I guess so.
They flipped them the other, so they were
Right.
like portrait instead of landscape, so you could tell at a
Right.
glance.
I also think they just didn't expect a lot of people to
Just
show
hand
you
them a
right.
real license.
So anyway, I got in there, and so I tipped the hell out of the bartender. So he and they would never ask me for an ID anyway. So all my 20 that was the bar I could go to. So I was going to that one. I mean, I was thrilled. It was great. But I remember my dad going there and ordering a Stinger, which is a drink that he was like really enjoying in 1959 with the fellas. And of course, one hasn't been ordered from the Red Hat since 1959. So the bartender, Mike, who was a great bartender, makes him a Stinger, and my dad just ripped into the drink. It's not a Stinger, man. You call that a Stinger? God, where did you learn to do it? It's like, oh my God, you're gonna destroy everything I built here. You can't do this. But no, he didn't. Like, man, the day of the Stinger, that was tough. All right.
In other news, Netflix is in trouble. Have you seen any of this?
Because people are sharing passwords?
Well, I mean, I think that the problems go deeper than that. I think that that's a convenient way for them to frame it now that there's competition in the streaming market. Because for a long time, they were the only streaming service, essentially.
They
right?
were just on top of the world. I mean, first of all, they were almost dead like 10 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm. And then they
stopped
started
sending discs
producing.
around.
Yeah, then they started producing their own content. Too.
House of Cards.
Right. So, and that was huge. The idea that you could have places outside of the major movie studios producing like must-see television and outside of these like, big names like HBO, places like this, that you could produce things that people would want to see was incredible, right? And they really changed that game. And that
Yeah.
So they created an industry where there wasn't an industry before for streaming services. But
And
now, unfortunately,
you're right. And they, not only that, but they moved an industry out of the big studios.
right?
I mean, they created their own thing, and also they bought up all of everything from the old days. Go ahead, tell the story because I don't know much.
Right. So they've been, and for a long time, they didn't really care if you shared passwords. It's been sort of a standard of the service because they were still growing even with password sharing, right? Because eventually it just becomes more convenient when you're an adult and you have your own home. I mean, like, just like people don't share cell phone bills with 10 of their friends to make it cheaper. Like,
Right.
you eventually just you just get your own Netflix account when you're an adult because it's just easier to deal with, right? But now there are so many other places to watch stuff. They have such a smaller share of the content that's being produced, right? It's not like Netflix has everything. Now it's split. You have like Warner Brothers Discovery, you have Disney Plus, you have Hulu, you have Amazon's doing a ton of stuff. You have
Yeah,
Apple.
I would say Amazon's doing a
You
ton
have
of stuff.
Apple.
Alice,
You have
Alice.
Paramount. What?
Mother Road.
That's right.
I don't think they created that personally.
But that's on Amazon Prime, though. They own
Okay,
that.
yeah. So see, you're happy. We haven't had Netflix now since the Cuties scandal,
Right.
and I mean, like, do you miss it for a second?
I don't think so. What was the Tiger King on?
That was on Netflix. That was
that
like
the
the
last
last.
thing we
That
got?
was
Oh.
pre the and the that first documentary about the Fire Festival that we
Oh, that
watched.
was a
That
good
was on
one.
Netflix.
That
That
was
was
a
a
good
good one. There's occasionally things that
Yeah.
people will say like you should see this and they're like it's not. But I haven't asked anybody for a Netflix password since giving up Netflix. I haven't needed it really. We
No.
have plenty of we don't watch that much stuff anyway,
No.
and there's plenty of
I
stuff
watched
to
one
watch.
thing.
Mother Road.
I know. So, they for the first time have shown a drop in the number of subscribers. They had a 200,000 person drop in number of subscribers this quarter for the first time in a long time. The first time it says in more than 10 years they had a quarter
Wow.
where they lost subscribers. So, and they're projecting they're going to lose 2 million more next quarter.
Well, you know what? Drop what is it? Dave
Chappelle?
Yeah, drop Chappelle like the employees want to do. See how what
Yeah,
that does
see
for you.
how the woke people flock to the platform. But so they have like this says 222 million subscribers, and so
That's
they've a
Pretty
lot,
big number.
a
Yeah.
lot. So losing 200,000, that's like 1/10 of 1% of their subscribers. It's not huge, but they're saying they're going to lose 2 million next quarter, which is 1% of their subscribers. Still not huge, but like that's significant. And the fact that it's 10 times higher than this quarter, that's a lot. So, but they're looking around and they're saying, we think there's about 100 million people out there that are watching Netflix with somebody else's password. So they're going to try, they've been working on some strategies. They've been rolling some out in some other countries to try and see what they can do. I'm not sure exactly. They keep playing their cards a little close to their chest on exactly what they're going to do. But I think they're going to offer you ways to like pay to add more people to your account. So they're going to try and like give people an easy and like relatively inexpensive way to go legit with the Netflix password sharing. But I do think just a lot of people are just not going to do it because I think a lot of people don't need Netflix that badly.
Well, yeah, but also it's free is more fun than pay to add more people.
Right. They're also talking about potentially adding a free service with ads on it. Or a cheaper service with ads on it that you could get if you're price conscious.
Right, and there are some of those already in the Amazon Prime, right, where you can get one with ads. Isn't that somewhere already?
Yeah, that's an option in Amazon Prime too. They have that as a choice. So like they have.
So there. This is an interesting cultural thing because I think very young people are teenagers or people in their early 20s are sharing passwords because they don't have any money, and so it's just easy, Cindy, give me your password. You have it. You can use my password. I also think that there's something for people, late millennials and through my generation and older, who spent our young years pre-internet thriving, getting hosed by big companies.
Right.
Like we
paid pay-per-view for movies. We called up places on the phone and gave a credit card number so we could watch a movie one time on cable.
But I mean getting hosed, like by Verizon. Your Verizon long distance bill was a thing. And AT&T and all these companies, you'd be getting hosed. You used to have to buy a whole CD for $22 for one song. And there's and that's why I think like when it came along, when people my age saw, fully ethical people and people with moral compasses, maybe a little less so, but that's why when Napster came along and Morpheus, people from my generation were cleaning up. And it was not difficult to rationalize how I had paid for this music one way or another through decades and decades and decades. And maybe there's some of that mentality as well. Because I am, as we've discussed, I am a thief.
Right.
Mostly
but I also
a petty
think,
thief. But if I could get a bigger haul, then I'd take it.
But I also think that even beyond that, there's just a lot of free and inexpensive content out there. And there are other services that have not cracked down on password sharing and that have new and original content. I mean, like, we have Amazon Prime because we have Amazon Prime anyway because we ship stuff to our house constantly and it's super easy. And then we get with that all this subscription to all this other streaming stuff. And I consider that just like a bonus. Like, I don't subscribe to Amazon Prime for that. So that's like essentially free to me because I would get Amazon Prime for the shipping anyway. So that's, I consider that like essentially a free subscription. And then we do Disney Plus. And there's lots of places now that are offering packages. We have our Disney Plus rolled into our phone bill because they gave it to us free for like a certain amount of time and I just never changed it. But it's like not that expensive. It's way cheaper than Netflix, first of all, which has also been slowly ticking up their prices.
My moles tell me that Disney Plus password may have found its way around the universe, as a matter of fact. But there you go. Like Disney Plus paid for itself with the Get Back specials,
right?
The Beatles specials, which we thoroughly enjoyed and added to the joy of life,
right?
So you've got that said, other people may have enjoyed those specials as well without having ordered Disney Plus.
But I think those were
good promotion for Disney Plus.
Right. I think, and this is why Netflix allowed password sharing for so long, right? Is because if you are producing content that people want to see, then allowing people to peek into the service before they make the commitment to buy it does allow
Kick
new
the tires
people.
like you might do on the old Mother
Right.
Road.
And without signing up for a free trial where you have to enter all the information.
Of course.
It's just a low-cost way. So if a friend says, oh, check out this thing that was on my account here, and then you look into it. And, like, I think the people that we shared the password with to watch the Beatles Get Back special were not people who would have ever thought to subscribe to Disney Plus in a million years. Like, they were just not. They were mostly all over age, like, 60. Yeah. But, well, at least 50.
So you and I got to get down. We got to be starting to head down that old Mother Road soon.
What does that mean?
That means that I'm not going to give you the rap sign. Okay, you usually do, but I'm going to tell you that we need to be beginning our final descent. I'll cede to you the floor.
You can play the exit music, honey. It's okay.
No, are you sure you're not done? You were still talking.
It's okay.
Nothing more?
Fine. Yeah, it's fine.
All right. Well, let's head down that
Mother Road.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Wait, is there an email that we should have read that we haven't read? Or do I just keep saying that? Oh, God. We got to do it,
I don't
Alice.
know. You want me to find an email?
I don't know. Do you want me to or just...
I didn't really have it teed up. I wasn't thinking about it.
Okay, let's tee it up for tomorrow.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We will see you tomorrow for episode 499 tomorrow. And you can find us, as always, for free at Burn Barrel Pod on Twitter, Facebook.com/.
Don't share the password. No, but no sharing passwords for any of our stuff. Everybody has to pay Patreon and... what's it called? Locals?
Locals.
That's right. No password sharing. This is, damn it, have a moral compass like I do.
Our listeners are very generous, and I appreciate every single one of them. So thank you, guys.
C'est la vie.